What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I'm going to revisit the Ford GT here in the touring car category. I've been having such a great time messing around with some of these cars like the Le Mans race car and something like the Mustang GT as well, which funnily enough, guys, I really haven't driven a lot of these touring cars a lot, so I'm definitely planning on messing around with some more of them in the future. But if there is a specific car you guys would like to see though, definitely let me know in the comments below because I am planning on going over more of these. For example, guys, the Ford Focus RS Touring Car Edition, I've actually never even driven this car once. I have no mileage on this vehicle, which is kind of hilarious, but I do feel like after that Season 8 Episode 1 update that many of these cars actually are better, and even the SVT Raptor only having 8 miles and or the GT having 9 miles, so I definitely have to jump into more of these, and I do feel like you really don't have to drive these cars a ton to actually get used to them. For example, guys, the Le Mans race car is also going to be really good. I might do a video on this car in the near future as well, but in this video, guys, I do want to look at the Ford GT, and after driving this car for just 16 miles, I do think I have a pretty good idea how this car does handle, and I do feel like some of the pro settings on these vehicles do have to be adjusted slightly, which I do think this is actually going to be a good thing because now the cars are going to be fine-tuned, and I did notice some of these cars actually had to be adjusted and or lowered to make them handle a bit better because honestly, guys, they were gripping a bit too much, which is probably going to be an issue you really wouldn't actually get mad at, but some of the touring cars definitely do have to be adjusted in a better way. Now, when it comes to the top speed of this Ford GT, it's going to be around 258 miles per hour, and I would honestly consider this to be slightly average because most of the touring vehicles do tend to do around 255, so it's 100% going to come down to how this car does handle and or how it does accelerate. I did notice, guys, even for example with the RS01 doing 265, some of the other cars are still going to be a better option on many of these tracks as well, so even though that car does have a high top speed, unless it's going to be the Celine, that car is honestly insane. But from the testing I have done with these cars though, guys, it's definitely going to come down to how they handle and their overall speed when going around a track, like coming out of a corner and or being able to accelerate in certain areas where it's going to be insanely important. I do feel like those higher top speeds might actually be helpful, but I do feel like a lot of players are going to be focusing on that main speed, which I do feel like cars like the Renault and or something like the NSX are most likely going to do insanely good in, but the Ford GT, guys, is definitely not going to be slow in any way. I would say the overall acceleration on this car might be slightly slower than something like the Renault, but I don't think it's going to hurt this thing because the handling is still going to be insanely good, which I do feel like is going to be a great trend with a lot of these touring vehicles. It really does feel like they're going to be insanely updated, especially compared to before, and I do feel like you can actually jump into like a summit with this Ford GT and still at least score high enough to get into platinum. You're probably not going to be setting records, but at least you can actually get a decently high score and or probably beat some of the other cars as well. I do know a lot of these cars obviously does come down to the driver, so even in some of these cars being in like the best racers' hands, I do feel like they can actually get an insanely high score with them, so and I also think this is going to be like the biggest highlight of the Season 8 Episode 1 update, and that's the fact that now we can actually run different cars in summits and or test out different vehicles and still compete against some of the better ones. I also do think that's going to bring new cars out like the Ferrari FXXK and or something like the Celine S7R, which I'm sure are probably going to keep the throne for a while. At least we can actually jump into these events with like the Ford GT and still score pretty decently with these cars. I will definitely be testing these out in the future, and I am planning on jumping into some of these summits with these cars to really see what they can do. I would like to know what you guys think about this Ford GT in the comments below. I will also be showing my updated pro settings as well because I do feel like a lot of these cars do need to be slightly adjusted, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more insight.